ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਡੀਸੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਯੂਐਸ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਕਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੀਅਰਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਯੂਐਸ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਚਰਚਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਊਗੀ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯੂਐਸ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 5 ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਮਿਲ ਸਕੇ। ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਯੂਕੇ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ, ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਿੱਖਸ, ਇੰਡੀਅਨ 에ਅਰ ਫੋਰਸ ਦੇ ਕਮਾਂਡਰ ਤੇ ਯੂਐਸ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਰਿਟਾਇਰਡ ਫੌਜੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਟੈਸਟੀਫਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਆਓ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯੂਐਸ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ 5 ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਉਸ ਤੱਕ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੀ ਇਸ ਸਰਵ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਟੈਸਟੀਮਨੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੀ ਨਿਕਲ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਿਵ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਆਫ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ, ਅੱਜ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਹਿਲ ਤੇ ਰੇਬਨ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਆਰਮ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੱਗ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਰਮ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਰਤੀ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਸ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਟੈਸਟੀਮੋਨੀ ਹੋਊਗੀ। ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਕਿੰਗਡਮ ਤੋਂ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਫੌਜ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸਣਗੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਭਰਤੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟਸ ਜਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤਾਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਕਿੰਗਡਮ 'ਚ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਰਿਟਾਇਰਡ 에ਅਰ ਕਮਾਂਡਰ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੋਪਰਾਏ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਰਹੇ ਐਂਡ 33 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਰੀਅਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਪਾਇਲਟ। ਉਹ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੈਟਸ ਚਲਾਏ ਨੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਮਿਗ ਚਲਾਏ ਨੇ, ਐਂਡ ਜਦੋਂ ਰਿਟਾਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 에ਅਰ ਕਮਾਂਡਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਡਿਊਟੀ ਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸੇਫਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਉਹ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਾਸਕ ਹੋਣ ਜਾਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਪਰੈਂਟਿਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਏਅਰਪਲੇਨਸ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵਰਦੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ 'ਚ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਿੱਖਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਟੈਸਟੀਮੋਨੀ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਏਕਨੂਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਰੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਕੋਰਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੇਸ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਉਹ ROTC 'ਚ ਸੀ, ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਕੋਰਟਸ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਟਰੰਪ ਕਰਦੀ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਹਾਰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਏਅਰ ਫੋਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਏਅਰ ਆਰਮੀ ਨੂੰ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕਿਰਨਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਨਲਿਸਟਡ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ 1977 'ਚ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਏ ਥੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ ਉਦੋਂ ਭਰਤੀ ਹੋਏ ਤੇ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਰੀਅਰ ਏਅਰ ਆਰਮੀ 'ਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਪੈਨਲਿਸਟ ਆਉਣਗੇ, ਜੇ ਸੁਣਨਗੇ, ਸਟਾਫ ਆਉਣਗੇ ਸੁਣਨਗੇ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਓਪੀਨੀਅਨ ਬਣਾਉਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤਾਂ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣ। ਐਕਸਪੈਕਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਟਾਫ ਅਵੇਅਰ ਹੋਵੇ, ਹਾਲੀ ਕਿ ਬੜੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਇਆ ਜਾਵੇ। ਅਦਰ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਰਮ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਥੱਲੇ ਜੁਆਇੰਟ ਵਿਦ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਔਰ ਹਾਊਸ ਅਲੋਨ ਆਰਮ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਬੈਠਣ, ਸੋਚਣ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਚੇਂਜਿਸ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣੀਆਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਫੌਜ 'ਚ ਜਦੋਂ 77 'ਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਇਹ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਾਸੇ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਅਕੋਮੋਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਨਾਟ ਔਨ ਏ ਟ੍ਰਾਇਲ ਬਾਈ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਕਰੀ ਕਰਤਾ ਕਰੀ ਲਾਤਾ, but a full entry into the armed forces.
Yeah, Vakif Fateh. My name is Kiranbir Gariwar, and I'm here to educate the Congress about Sikhs in the U.S. Army. I spent almost 10 years in the Army here. I joined the Army in 1977, and I kept my faith, all 5 articles, and I had no issues, no problems. So the main reason for us to be here is to make sure we can't go from one day to the other. This will allow us, and I'm a proof of it that it can be done, and I've done it. I work with chemical nuclear weapons. I wore protective masks. I was with the elite units like 101st Airborne, 11 Cav. So therefore, I think this will help our cause down the road. Thank you.
Today we are here to give testimony that why Sikhs should be allowed to serve in the army. Sikhs around the world, in UK, US, including World War I, World War II, specifically in India, they have gone to the highest post. So this is our way of educating American congressmen and their staff members on the accomplishments of Sikhs around the globe and why they should be allowed. Because for a Sikh, if he's committed to his Panch Kakar, that is the biggest evidence to show that he will be faithful towards the country. So that is our message today. I'll be testifying today and addressing this concern. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
I've come from India to represent the fighter pilots community belonging to Sikh religion. I joined the Air Force as a young pilot officer in 1963, and with 11 months of flying experience in Indian Air Force, I was handpicked to go to United States Air Force to fly with them for advanced gunnery course. The interesting thing is that in those 12 or 15 batches that came here for training to do advanced fighter gunnery course on F-86F, there were at least about 12 Sikh officers that I can count of who came and flew with the American Air Force in T-33 and F-86, wearing those helmets, wearing those masks, wearing the flying kit as it exists even now. But somehow, after 1981, it appears some changes have taken place in the thinking of the government, and they banned the Sikhs from flying the fighters in United States Air Force. This meeting today here is basically to protest against it in a way and bring it home very clearly to the US government that the Sikh community does not have any problems in flying fighter aircraft all over the world. The Sikh officers with unshorn beard have been using masks, have been using the helmets right from the Second World War days, and we've gone and flown high-performance supersonic aircraft with similar kit as the spacemen wear these days, and our beard or our hair do not come in the way at all in performing our devoted duties as pilots of helicopters, transport aircraft or fighters. And this philosophy has to change because basically it amounts to discrimination which one doesn't expect to happen in a big and great country like America. So I am here now to contribute towards change of the policy in the US. Thank you.
जी डॉक्टर प्रितपाल सिंह कोऑर्डिनेटर अमेरिकन गुरुद्वारा प्रबंधक कमेटी सब तो पहला सब ਨੂੰ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਦਿਨ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਹੈ ਕਾਕਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਸੰਤ ਸਿਪਾਹੀ ਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਰੋਲ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੰਤ ਸਿਪਾਹੀ ਦਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਰਜ਼ ਅਦਾ ਕਰਨੇ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ, ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਫੈਂਡ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਦਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਦਮ ਹੈ। ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਾਰਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਹਨ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਔਰ ਆਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਾਰਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਫਲਤਾ ਮਿਲੇਗੀ ਔਰ ਛੇਤੀ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਨੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਫੌਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੰਪੂਰਨ ਬਾਣੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਰਤੀ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੌਮ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਵੀ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮੈਂ ਬਲਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਚੱਠਾ ਲੋਕਲ ਮੈਟਰੋਪੋਲੀਟਨ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਏਰੀਆ 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਹਿੱਲ ਰੇਬਨ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਨਾਲ, ਕੇਸਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜ ਕਕਾਰ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀਅਰਿੰਗ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਹੀਅਰਿੰਗ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਸੱਜਣ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਦੂਰੋਂ ਆਏ ਹੈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਟੈਸਟੀਮਨੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ DC ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਕਸ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਔਰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਗਰੋ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਲਿਖੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਮਿਲਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ। ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਂਬਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਜਲਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਪਾਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਗੁਰੂ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਅੱਜ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੀ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ USA ਦੀ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਰੇਬਰਨ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਫਿਸ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ generals at the defense attaché of UK, a general from the Indian Air Force, as well as an individual, Kiranbir Singh Garewal, who served in the US Armed Forces from 1977 to 1984 with his articles of faith. ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਰਾਉਂਡ ਟੇਬਲ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਰਟੀਕਲਸ ਆਫ ਫੇਥ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਇਸ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਰਵ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ 에ਅਰ ਫੋਰਸ ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਜਨਰਲਮੈਨ ਅਤੇ UK ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਅਟੈਚੇ ਮੇਜਰ ਜਨਰਲ, he will also be telling the public about how they served with fellow Sikhs without any issues in the various armed forces around the world, so that Sikhs can proudly also serve the American armed forces in the same way they've served so many other armed forces around the world, in a proud and benevolent manner for the service and well-being of the American people and the American homeland. Thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate the American Sikh Congressional Caucus for this briefing that's being held today. Our hope is that we can practice in the military and serve in the military with all of our articles of faith, and do that with the best grace possible. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
All the way at one point all the way from the Khyber and beyond to Multan, into Afghanistan, and all the way to Delhi and on to Kashmir and the Tibet border. The interaction for the Sikhs became very important for the British. The British had worked its way up in the subcontinent of India and had come up to the borders of modern Ranjit Singh's territory. And what they were really concerned about is what Napoleon was doing. They were fearing that Napoleon would come from the east, traveling west, and then would be coming towards India. They really wanted a buffer state. They wanted a buffer state that would keep somebody else busy before they reached them. And Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire was a wonderful thing for them to have. The negotiation happened and in 1808, and it was called with the East India Company, and it came to a treaty in April 25th, 1809, which told Maharaja Ranjit Singh he had to stay on the Satluj River and not come further down and beyond that, which would create a beautiful buffer for him. He was not happy, but it did happen, and so on. Unfortunately, in 1839, Maharaja Ranjit Singh dies, and there's other chaos within the empire. There was the families were trying to get ruling. The army was in disarray. Having seen that the British, the East Indian Company they always talked about, felt that this is opportunity time, perhaps, that the buffer wouldn't be as strong, that we should take action and do that. And at that time, there were proactive acts on both sides, were escalating from the British side to the Sikh side. So on December 13, 1845, Lord Hardinge issues a proclamation declaration declaring war on the Sikhs, being that they were weakened. They had three different wars, which was called the First Anglo War. Army was in disarray. The Sikhs succumbed to the battle. And two other wars, the Second Anglo-Sikh War happened, and they again lost. A Treaty of Lahore was signed in 1846 between the British East India Company and the state of Lahore, the Sikh Empire, under which the Maharaja Dalip Singh, who was 9 years at that time, became the heir to the throne. His empire was confiscated and was annexed, and thus the Sikh Raj and the British they were actually, the Maharaja still maintained an army under the understanding of the treaty. So that happened. And British knew that they wouldn't sit still, so right away after the defeat, they incorporated many of the Sikhs into the British Army, and thus started a relationship with the British Army from that point on in 1846. They established Sikh regiments. They were specifically for the Sikhs in the British Army, and and that hence happened. Now this is 1847 and on. So prior to the whole history, we come up to all the way to 1947 with the British lead, but there was a Sikh army within the British Army. One interesting thing is that under the British, there were many different fights with the frontier. You may have seen some of the movies in the old black and whites. If you ever saw your mom and dad watch them, they talked about the frontier wars with the northwest frontier. One incident happened, which is the Battle of Sargari. It happened on with the Sikh regiment. There were two different pickets in the hills. Actually were made back when Maharajah Ranjit Singh was there, and there was a loophole. They couldn't have communication, so they put a small picket there. There were 21 Sikhs assigned to this picket, with small establishment, and the Afghan platoons attacked it. There were 10,000 people, and there were 21 individuals in this thing. And one of the persons who was signaling back to the both of the picket was dictating what the fight was happening. One by one, there were Sikhs being killed all the way. They were asked to surrender, did not, and the last person finally says, "I'm the last one left, and I'm about to go to battle, no more communication," and he signs off. And that was some of the wonderful story about it. And then 2 days later, well, actually, it only happened in a matter of hours. The next day, the British reached there, found out, and they found out that 21 dead, and there were 6 to 1,400 people dead on the other side. And UNESCO has talked about 8 collective stories of bravery that is published in the world, and this is considered one of the 5 most bravest action in military action. And it's something similar. And one of the things you all have seen is when the Greek forces fought the mighty Persian army in the movie 300, and that's the same one of those same movies there. So that is where the battles are very important to the Sikh things and to the British. And then we move on. The British do integrate it to the Sikh into the armies, and we on to 47, World War I, World War II, and continue. Which is why I think the best speaker to now continue is not only the Sikhs were in the army from the 1849s, but even to the new armies and how they've integrated. Our discussion today is how other places have integrated Sikhs within it into the new army, which is why we're proud to have Major General Richard Cripwell from the Defense Attaché for the U.S. Embassies in Washington, D.C. here, and he will discuss the integration of Sikhs in the British Armed Forces. So we would thank you, Cripwell. The integration of Sikhs in the British Armed Forces. So we would thank you, Cripwell.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for allowing me to speak to you all this afternoon. In fact, I think, without getting into a history debate, I think our association with Sikhs possibly goes back to the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, where there's enough evidence to suggest that at least one Sikh in the British fleet in what is an extraordinary historic naval battle for my country, merely just to underscore the depth of the relationship that we have with the Sikh nation. And over the years, again, just to reflect that gallantry, 10 Victoria Crosses, which is the equivalent in the United States of the Congressional Medal of Honor, has been won by Sikhs in battle as well. And it's just as hard to win one of those as it is to win a Congressional Medal of Honor, just in case there's a bravery standard at play here. If I may, just to open up, rather than just talk about Sikhs particularly, I think it's important to underscore that for the British Defence Forces, the approach that we have is one that we seek to ensure plays out across all faiths, and indeed a much broader orientation as well. For us, diversity we intend that it is drawn from the breadth of the society that we defend, that we as the Defence Forces gain strength from the range of talents that come from society, and particularly its knowledge, experience, and as I said, talent, and we welcome and respect and value the unique contribution that every individual can make. And for us, equality and diversity, which are the code words that we use, aren't just simply a matter of legislation. They are, frankly, it is the morally right thing to do as far as we're concerned. And frankly, it also makes very good business sense. And I think that's worth underscoring. in preparation to speak today, I spoke in the last 2 days to two very, very important people. One is the Sikh chaplain to British Defence Forces in the United Kingdom, and I also spoke to a Corporal Singh, for those of you that know my country, from Coventry, and if you know that accent, he couldn't come from anywhere else in the world, frankly, who has been in the army for over 10 years in the Signal Regiment. And it's really that his experience in particular, but also that of Mandeep, the chaplain, that I want to reflect, because I was particularly keen to find out from Corporal Singh whether, if you like, the reality of his life in the services matched the advertising, the things that we claim to do. Did his experience reflect that? And I have to say, it's clearly a small sample size of a poll, but he was really remarkably positive about the experience that he has had. And I think there's a key in terms of the armed forces. It was that he had thought about joining the military, he said to me, for some time, but it was in fact going to a recruiting office where there was a Sikh recruiter in the office who he was able to talk to, not simply about the issues of joining the armed forces, but was able to talk about the impact on his religion of joining the armed forces as well. And it's clear that that was a remarkably positive experience for him. This, of course, wouldn't apply to everybody, but in the last 15 to 20 years, we have done all that we can do to make people of all faiths feel welcome. To put this in perspective, although clearly the United Kingdom is predominantly a Christian country, he was offered the chance to go to temple, wherever he wished to do that, and indeed was actually offered service transport to get him there, because he didn't have a car when he was a young man. Throughout his service, both in training and in the military, he has been very well supported by his family and by his friends and by his temple, which I know has been extremely important to him. And he sits, in terms of promotion, exactly where you would expect a young man or woman of ability and talent. He sits exactly on that spectrum. He himself has met no discrimination. For us, and I know this is often a subject of some excitement, we have absolutely no issues where uniform is concerned, and indeed commands are specifically directed to be as lenient would be the wrong word, but as flexible as they can in, for example, taking account of the 5Ks and the way in which people conduct their business. We are clear, and you will be pleased to hear that in a language that only the military can invent for dress regulations, we have made what should be a relatively simple subject quite complicated. But in terms of the issue that often is reflected is the one of shaving when one is a pilot. I'll bow to the Brigadier's experience on that, or wearing gas masks. We are quite clear that, and in general, that the appropriate adaptations should be made to ensure predominantly the health and security of individuals and the commands in which they stand. But there is a great deal of leeway left open to commanding officers to behave in a way that they believe is appropriate and respectful. Indeed, talking to the chaplain, she was actually concerned that commanding officers were sometimes too willing to assist people to be able to mark their faith and be faithful to it, which I thought was an interesting, frankly, turnaround for me. But so I think what we have done in conclusion, we are fortunate to have an extraordinary history and backstory, if you like, with Sikhs, and one that for us has been extraordinarily positive. The way in which we attempt to conduct ourselves today is absolutely underpinned, as I said, by doing not only what is morally right, but something that frankly makes good sense for my country. And in doing that, we have tried to ensure that whilst there is clearly a common standard for every young man and woman who seeks to join the military forces, we are as adaptable as we can be within the grounds of good sense and health and safety to make sure that the individual tenets of your faith are respected.
So the perspective again, Sikh Army following into the British Army, how we've integrated there. But then we fall into the India Army. One of the most important parts, and as Brigadier has mentioned, that the compliance is an issue when it comes to gas masks and so forth. Nothing could be more necessity on a daily basis than an air pilot. Our next speaker is Sajid Singh Boprai, retired air commander in the Indian Air Force Army. He has had a 33 years of career in the Indian Armed Forces. And not only that, back in the 60s, he traveled to 1964 to the U.S., and where he trained with the United States Air Force at the time flying the T-33s, which were, I think, were the first fixed wings planes that had just come into inventions at the Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. He also went on to do other training at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada on Sabre F-86s, and then again he came into the United States doing exercises with the United States Air Force back in the 1990s along with the Western Command. So he has an extensive career. At the retirement age, his focus was safety. He was in charge of the whole country, the whole Air Force, in terms of safety. I think no other person could talk about the safety when we're talking about masks and the preparation. So it's our honor to have Indrajit Singh Boprai, who is a retired air commander for the Indian Air Force.
Gentlemen, it's a very great opportunity to come all the way from India to express myself and be very honest in telling you as to what all has happened in my lifetime as a Sikh officer. We had moved from Pakistan area to Slialpur, where the partition took place in 1947. Uprooted from the old ancestral places, and we were on the bullock cart and all that when we came across the border and cut through the interest called Patti, a very small town, where we were allotted 1/5 of the land that we had in Pakistan, because there was not enough land available in Punjab. So the government decided that they didn't want to move the Sikhs all over India for meeting the resettlement issues, and you ended up getting 1/5 of the property that you actually had in Pakistan, in Punjab. Be that as it may, our father, who was son of a normal revenue patwari, you would understand, lowest revenue person, that was my grandfather, but the wisdom and made his son become a doctor. So my father was a gold medalist from Lahore Edward Medical College. He was a gold medalist, and he was wise enough to shift the whole family once he saw the things happening and going wrong well in time to India. So we didn't lose anybody from the family, but we were uprooted and we were now in a new place. And that's where we had our education, a very small little town. And when I was somewhere about the 8th class or something like that in 56, we were having a PT parade period. Our PT master was giving us the works. Suddenly, a very low-flying, very high-sound aircraft, which had no propeller, it very noisy, it flew over our school ground, and we as children were very sure that it was going to fall. So we ran after it. The PT teacher was blowing whistles to tell us to come back. When we disregarded that, we went running in that direction, hoping the aircraft would fall probably other side of our little town. We went up one of the primitive hills and didn't see any smoke, didn't see any fire, and came back disappointed. When I got back home, my father was on leave there that time, so I asked him, I said, this was a very funny aircraft that I saw. It had no propeller, it didn't seem to be very big, it was a small tiny thing, but it had two tails, and it flew very fast, very low level, very ultra low level, and we don't know what it was. So he explained to me that it is a jet aircraft called Vampire, which the Indian Air Force has purchased from the Britain as such, and it's just been inducted only about a year back. So that was my first encounter with jet fighters. And I told my father that time itself, I was in class 8, that, Papa, I want to be a fighter pilot. So he says, God bless you. work hard for it. So I had set myself an aim to become a fighter pilot just after seeing a jet fighter fly over our heads at a very early age. Our father, with the background that he had, even in those years, I'm talking about 50s and all that, used to get a Time magazine, used to get a Life magazine, used to get a Science Digest, used to get a Reader Digest, and narrate us the stories as to what is happening in the outside world to widen our horizons. And he encouraged us. So wherever he was, whether he was in Dharamsala or Yol camp in Himachal, in present Himachal, or wherever, if there was an exhibition in Delhi, he would take the whole family across, show us the jet engines there, this thing. I saw the Harrier engine there, I saw other things and all that, and I slowly got more and more interested in the jet fighters and all that kind of thing. So as I grew up, I finished my matriculation. I started appearing in the National Defense Academy exam. I was quite okay in studies, quite bright in a way, but beyond hello, I couldn't speak a word of English. So I would pass the UPSC exam, the Union Public Service Commission written exams, very easily, but when I would go to interview, I would get rejected. I got rejected 5 times because I couldn't speak English. As luck would have it, when I joined Khalsa College, Amritsar, there were students from Malaya, now called Malaysia, from Indonesia, from Nairobi, from Ceylon, and we were 6 together, put together in one room. Well, that helped me to learn how to yap in English, and it really was a great helping point when it came to getting selected for Air Force. When I went for my Air Force Flying College, I was overage for NDA. When I went for my Air Force Flying College, now that I could speak and I had mastered speaking the English, I was selected for Air Force Flying College. And that was in 1962. The Chinese had attacked India. The Air Force was being expanded at a very great speed, and it gave us an opportunity to join the training. And interestingly, the training, which normally would take 1.5 years, was compressed to bring up fighter pilots in a hurry, and we completed our training in 11 months. And to tell you some very interesting statistics, there were 193 cadets that joined the academies. 2 more academies were created, certainly, to meet the influx. And out of 193, 95 became pilot officers. And interestingly, out of those 95, you see the photograph here, when we're getting our wings at that stage, 20 were Sikh pilots. Out of 95, 20 were Sikh pilots with me who became pilot officers. Some were navigators, some were transport head pilots, some were helicopter pilots, some were the fighter pilots like me. There were 6 of us who became fighter pilots from that stream, and we joined our squadrons. Now, because the Chinese war, the Americans, with their big heart, wanted to help us to strengthen our defense. They gave us some fantastic long-range radars and all that, and they volunteered to give free training to some of our pilots to sort of accelerate our operational preparedness. We were the lucky ones. In 11 months of my commission service, I was on my way to USA to train with the United States Air Force for an advanced gunnery course on F-86 and T-3. It was a blessing, great blessing in disguise, because that exposure that I had with the American Air Force stood me in good stead all my life. So from the background of those villages like Pati and all that, I was now a fighter pilot. I had got my wings, I had won my wings, and I was now suddenly in New York in some army base which is some fort or something. I forget the name of the fort. And the first day was very interesting. 5 of us had arrived there. One was Muslim, I was a Sardar, one was from Rajasthan, one was from Bangalore, one was from Nagpur. So 5 of us pulled from different places, ended up in New York. The first morning when we went for our officers' mess, breakfast and all that, the leader was ahead of us, one pilot of Tambe. The moment he arrived there, the glass door automatically opened. He jumped out of scare, because we had not seen those things in India. We went further when we picked up our tray, and we wanted to help ourselves with whatever was there as a buffet kind of thing. So the guy asked me, now, you want your eggs sunny side up or sunny side down? So I said, sunny side up or sunny side down? I said, give me sunny side up. So I got single fried eggs. Okay. Then the other fellow said, you give me sunny side down. So he got double fried eggs. Now we are getting exposed to a new way of life, a new language, and Then the team leader, he was very keen to have a cup of tea, so he watches people. They go to that machine, they get tea from there, and they come back. So he picks up a cup from there, pushes it against the machine, and he comes back laughing. He says, "Oh, garam pani hai yaar. There's only hot water in this." So I found the courage, and I went and asked an American officer. I said, "Will you please tell us how to make tea?" So he told us. Okay, he told me, he put the cup here. Here are the tea packs. Here are the sugar cubes. Here is the dry powder milk. So I learned to make the tea in the modern way. So now from fighters, we were now becoming modern fighters. All right. So we ended up in Lackland. When we ended up in Lackland, they had a language school, basically trying to get us to speak English in the American way. Okay. And learn English in the American way. So the knife, which we spelled all our lives as K-N-I-F-E, became N-I-F-E. The night, N-I-G-H-T, became N-I-T-E. The schedule became schedule. So we were now learning on the tape recorders how to speak English, how to do this. But the funny part of it was that we were correcting the grammar of which we had learned from the Britishers. We are now correcting the grammar mistakes of our teacher, and we used to have hearty laughs. But after about 5 months of acclimatization, we were now sent to Randolph Air Force Base, where we had to start flying. The very first period, the very first week was devoted towards aviation medicine. From the time the pilots started flying in Second World War, the doctors took a very keen interest to find out what are the problems, night flying, this flying, that flying, and some of them became actual doctors. The aviation medicine people are the ones who should be deciding he is fit to fly and he is not fit to fly. Not the politicians, not anybody else. So in that 1 week of the medical capsule that they conducted they told us what are the effects of gravity on the body, what are the night flying problems, what is the disorientation. They showed us pictures, they gave us lectures, and in addition to that, they carried out our medical checks, where they measure the cheekbones, they measure this length here, they measure the leg length here, they measure everything. They specified then, after all this research done on heart, ECG and this and that, everything extensively done, they gave us a certificate saying that fit to fly fighters, and also gave us mask size so-and-so, helmet size so-and-so, flying boot size so-and-so. Everything was tried by those medical specialists, and it was specified. Now, the oxygen mask that you wear, it's shown on the diagram there, you can see it in the center. The helmet has a purpose. Helmet has earphones from where you hear the voice. Your mask has a microphone, it also gets you the oxygen. Okay, and then you have the helmet to protect your head. Then you got a visor which protects you from the air blast and all that. I had no problem wearing those things. I had been wearing it in Vampires, which was a British helmet, British mask, British uniform, everything British. Now I was with the American Air Force. I was using American mask. I was using American helmet, American G-suit, American everything, flying gloves, boots, everything. And I flew for 7.5 months, 30 hours on T-33s, and we moved across to Nellis Air Force Base. We did our front guns, we did our gunnery, we did our rockets, we did our bombing there, we did air-to-air fighting, and the speed at which they trained us was very fantastic. There was no trainer for F-86. We were launched solo with our instructor chasing us. Okay, the first takeoff, after that, the first time you are ahead and he is chasing you, that was the first solo, with no trainer available. And the next sortie, he was ahead and you were taking off with him in 10-second intervals, so as a pair takeoff. The third takeoff was, he was here and I was abreast of him in my lane, and we were doing a pair takeoff. I was just watching his nose wheel come up, but we coped up with all this, all sorts of things. We did night flying there, we did everything like that. And after 7.5 months, very confident of life, we got back to India. Now, as luck would have it, I was posted to a squadron which had French aircraft, Monsieur 4A. Okay, now it was French flying helmet, French flying mask, French G-suit, French everything, and I had no problem. I flew with all that. I had the same beard, I never clipped it. Never in my life have I clipped my hair. But I had no problem. When you want to fly, before you go to the aircraft, you have your own cabin there. Okay, you put take your uniform there, hang it there, put your overall, put your G-suit on, take your turban off, tie a little on, and your aircraft, do your checks, put your turban on, and off you go. There is no problem at all as far as the Sikhs are concerned. what one really wonders is that from 1964, when this advanced gunnery courses were going on, I can count something like 12 names of Sikh officers who came in different batches and flew with the American Air Force. All that's on records. Thereafter, we've been having exercises with the MiG-23s coming, with the Jaguars coming, with the Su-30s coming, with the MiG-29s coming. They've been fantastic exercises with the US Air Force. And they see the Sadar Sikh pilots flying there. I don't know that they've not been able to impress on the great nation that Sikhs should not be barred. They are flying with us. They're flying all French aircraft. They're flying the Russian aircraft. They've flown the American aircraft. But somehow it has happened, for whatever the reason, that it may be. Yes, but I heard this little thing which upsets me a little bit, in the sense that apparently when that big man Jogi, who was a preacher, he came along, some of the American soldiers apparently converted to Sikhism. Okay, I've heard it. I've no way of confirming the story. But two of them, having converted to Sikhism, grew the beard during their leave, and they reported back to the unit with the beard floating there. Now the commanding officer was taken aback. What is this? What has gone wrong with you? And that's where the problem started. That's where the problem really started. And the sufferers are the Sikhs as a community, really speaking. There is no reason as to why shouldn't we be flying. I've flown all my life. For 30 years, for 33 years I've flown. I've got 2,500 hours on the MiG-21s. From the time that I got back, the war started in 65, I took part in the war. Then the next 1971, I took part in a MiG-21, and I was involved in one of those encounters where we shot on a starfighter in Jamnagar. I was the cap controller there with a MiG-21. And interestingly, I became a flight commander for three consecutive years. My squadron was declared as the best operational squadron. From there, they picked me up. They sent me to the Directorate of Air Staff Inspections, where I became a member, a flying inspector in Air Headquarters, where we had two aircraft at our disposal. We went without any warnings to different bases, flew with them, checked their war plans, checked everything else, and put them to real 7 days of hard work, day and night exercise. And after that, they sent me to Iraq now. For 2 years, I went and flew with Iraqi Air Force. Never had any problem. 40 degrees temperature, this, that, and all that. Never had any problem. Then I got back to India. They posted me to a unit called TACD, which trains people for day fighter leader forces, one of the very prime courses anywhere in the world. And I was part of the staff there. In 2 months, 18 days, the luck takes me to Soviet Union now, as a squadron commander designate for MiG-23 MF aircraft, the interceptor version. So I was now given the task of raising a new squadron with a new aircraft. After about 4.5 months of the snow and the fog and the fighting with the Russians, because those guys have no facilities. They don't have anything to give to the officers. I mean, in one little small room there were 3 people to sleep there. I said, sorry, we're not exposed to that. We're not going to do that. Not more than two in a room. Then in the officers' mess, one of the youngsters went for an early morning bath. Okay, he comes running back to me as the team leader. Sir, the bathroom is just open taps there. There are big black people and white people and all that having a bath naked. It's an amazing story. It's an officer's mess bathroom there. There were no attached bathrooms. So I said, don't tell me that. It's so bad. He said, yes, sir, it's so bad. I couldn't believe it. I had to go down to the station commander and ask him. I said, how many bathrooms do you have in your house? So he says, 2. I said, can I use one for the next some time till you put up partitions in those bathrooms? Use it as the stores. Use tin. Use whatever you want. But make those bathrooms with a screen there, but do it in 24 hours, 48 hours. Otherwise, I'm going to come to your house and have a bath. He did that. He did that in 24 hours. I said, when your people come to us for some sort of a training or inducting the new aircraft, we look after you so well. You can't do that to us. So there was a perpetual fight with the Russian Air Force. We were treated very well here, but when it came to the Soviet Union Air Force, it was pathetic. But what I'm telling you, there also we flew with those people, with their masks and all that. They were trying to give me some old masks. I said, sorry, we refused to fight. We refused to fly with the old used masks. I had to go to Moscow all the way to sort out the problem that we had paid for a new flying kit, issue the new flying kit to us, we'll take it ourselves to India. So they had to do that. They tried to push that you fly with this old mask, fly with this old helmet. I refused to do that. Finally, we came back, flew the MiG-23s with the BVR, Beyond Visual Range missiles, look up, look down radars, close combat missile, all sorts of tactics were changed. Instead of 2 years, I commanded the squad for 3 years, 3 months. And then I became Chief Operations Officer. I commanded one of the most strategically important bases there for 2 years. And I retired as Director of Flight Safety. Some of you will get this booklet and you will read my contribution as a fighter pilot done in Indian Air Force. It's a very interesting message that I used to write in our Flight Safety magazine, which was sent to a attaché and so-and-so embassy, so-and-so embassy. Everybody has it. But it's a collection of some of the messages that I wrote as the Director of Flight Safety, which I was responsible for ensuring the flight safety in the whole of the Indian Air Force.
Thank you.
So I'll just take 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
For those who wish to take some, thank you, Commander.
I'll just take 30 seconds. So with this, I want to plead to this great nation that the Sikhs are known as a martial race. The Britishers have had a long dealings with us. Okay, in the Second World War and any war for that matter, the First World War, the Sikhs have taken a part in a very major way. Please don't deny this Sikh community from getting into fighters, helicopters, or submarines, or wherever it is. They're devoted soldiers, and they'll do very well in every field. And the fear of the military does not come into the way in any field. So we would please review your restrictions or whatever reason they have been put in. They're not justified. I personally feel it's a very serious discrimination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Air Commander. As Air Commander mentioned, the first Sikh to join the U.S. Was Bhagat Singh Sindh in 1913, who was recruited by the U.S. Army. He came to the United States to study as a student and went on to serve the U.S. Army wearing a full beard, full turban and all. Having seen with the British Army, the Indian Air Force, continuation of the beard and the turban was his policy that continued on. Our next speaker is Kalambir Singh Garibal, who joined the U.S. Army in 1977 and later until 1984. He joined at the time, again, serving as you see him here today, with a turban, with a beard. And because of the short time, I would let him explain the story rather than getting more in detail about his career.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. And this course is very important to me. And I joined the Army in 1977. I came to this country. I was in only 2 weeks, and I was in the Army. My basic training was in Fort Knox, Kentucky. My basic training was in Fort Knox, and advanced training in chemical and nuclear warfare in Maryland. My secondary MOS was Cavalry Scouts. So as you can see, the main course, the issue is wearing a protective mask. Working with chemical and nuclear weapons for 80 years, that's what I did. I wore almost every day. I started in the Army as a lowest ranking as a private and moved up. And rank promotion came with time with no issues. Did I have issues in the Army? Yes, definitely, because you figure there are 20 people in basic training. I'm only one with a turban. You're going to pick on somebody. Easy target. No worries. They made me run, I ran. They made me do push-ups, asked them how many. And in Fort Knox, Kentucky, the best saying the 3 hills, Misery, Agony, and Heartbreaker. I think those hills should be named after me, because I ran so many times up those hills, and it made me a better runner. By the way, I was one of the top runners in the country, long distance. I've done marathons in 2 hours and 10 minutes. In fact, a month ago, I just did a 200-mile race in California. Started 7 in the morning, finished Sunday at 1:30. Going back to the Army, I never asked for any favors, any special treatment. One thing I learned, make friends with a mess sergeant. He's the one who cooks for you. Make sure I get fed. Okay? And one thing, I don't eat beef. I told them that's what it is. Once I worked in the recruiting office in Oakland, California, and honestly, I have no idea that was a recruiting office. The guy comes out, he says, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm looking for a job." He said, "This is the Army." I said, "Okay, I want to join the Army." He said, "No, well, you have to cut your hair and beard." "I'm sorry, I cannot do that." I was ready to walk out. He called me back in. He comes back 20 minutes later, asks me about my background. He said, "Guess what? You can." And that's how I went in. Every unit I went to, I have no issues, no problems. My company commanders, my fellow soldiers, and never have any issues with me, wearing a turban and a beard. I have done, to set an example, I used to do the Army PT test, which is 2-mile run, push-ups and sit-ups, in full chemical gear. And this is just to maybe a challenge for myself and challenge to my troops. I worked in a battalion headquarters, regiment headquarters. If anybody knows about the U.S. Army, 11 Cav is one of the elite units in the Army. During Cold War, our job was to patrol the Fulda Gap, eastern border. I was there. Came back to the States. I was assigned to one of 1st Airborne, again one of the elite units. Did it. At no point in 8 years of my time in the Army, I had any problems, or my fellow troops had any problems with me wearing a turban or a beard. And so the way I feel is we should not decide on case-to-case basis. I'm very proud to be a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces. If I could do it again, I'll do it again and still run 200 miles. Okay. And Cavalry Scout, our job was during wartime to go deep into the other side and see what's there before the main unit comes in. It didn't hinder me. Got the results. Chemical warfare. We used to fly helicopters, and from the helicopter we'll throw down tear gas as if it's a nerve agent or something. And we had less than 1 minute to don your gas mask, chemical gear, no issues. It never leaked. I never put nothing on my face, wrestling or anything. Never did that. Of course, don't have time for that. In the field, wearing a turban, believe me, if I join the Army, it takes me good 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes to tie a turban. I stand in front of a mirror and do all that. Join the Army, 30 seconds. Out, in and out. So, for whatever reason, our government decided it can be done. I feel it can be done. Safety is very important. And I understand, like you were saying, that we should not make special treatments, but I never asked for any special treatment from in 8 years. And so I feel, if somebody wants to serve the country, why not? Why not? If I was young enough, like you guys are, and if I can join again, I'm willing to give my life for the country, this will be not stopping. I have 2 sons. Older one wants to join the Army. But I challenge him on one thing, that he gives me 1 week of his time. If he passes my test, he can. He failed, by the way. so he became a lawyer. So ladies and gentlemen, especially you guys working for Congress and senators, please take a message back. We can do it. It can be done. It has to be done. And I'm not talking about 1800s or 1940s, I'm talking about recently. In the same protective mask we wore at that time, I wore, we'll be using it. Same weapons, same tanks, same training. In fact, I trained in Maryland 15 companies in chemical and nuclear warfare, and we sent them to Korea and to Germany before I was sent to 11 Cav. They won't send me to 11 Cav if I was a lousy soldier. And like promotions, when I left the Army, I was selected for a rank of E7. And the day I left, 2 days before I left the Army, somebody from Pentagon called me up, want to know why I'm leaving, what they can do to keep me in the Army. So I won't take much of your time. Thank you. And like I said, I'm very proud to be a member of the U.S. Armed Forces and a veteran.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gurwal. As Mr. Gurwal said, that what has happened since '81 is that you have to have accommodation or request to your superiors, and they make the decision if you can or cannot move forward wearing a turban or not, if you are even selected. Currently, there's only 3 other individuals who wear a turban. So it's now focus has changed onto a lawsuit. We had numerous lawsuits where accommodations were given. Recently, the most recent one is by the United Sikhs, a nonprofit organization that had a case on Eknoor Singh, who was in the ROTC. So again, time permitting, we have Jaspreet Kaur, who is a lawyer for United States, who handled the case and will explain what is now the reasons and how we move forward for the current reasons, not an open one, but a short survey on that, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. It's an honor to be among such distinguished panelists. Usually hearing stories from Army veterans is always so interesting, and the second most interesting storytellers are lawyers. So hi, here I am. Well, I grew up in India, and in India to joining army is like the best thing you could do for your career is join the Indian Army, because the privileges they have in India is so much and so vast. When I moved to US, the biggest struggle I had to understand, because growing as a Sikh woman, we believe in the concept of saint and soldier, which is Sant and Sipahi. As well as we are in doing, United Sikhs is known to be a humanitarian aid organization. We have gone to Haiti. Last year we were in Syria serving free food. And at the same time, and I'm honored to be with the organization as well, because we are also fulfilling the target of being the Sipahi. And therefore we are here to support through their testimonies and actually forward a legislation, not just a case-to-case basis accommodation, legislation which advocates religious freedom for all observant Sikh men and women who want to serve their country in armed forces. Our objective here is to prevail upon the members of United States Congress to introduce a legislation which implements the decision which was recently given in 2015 by District Court in DC. The case which he mentioned is Eknoor Singh versus McHugh. It's in 2015. ACLU and United Sikhs worked together. ACLU, DC, and United Sikhs worked together towards the case. This legislation would help in so many levels for the Sikh community in US. It will be helpful to make Sikh Americans feel that they are the part of US, which is in today's politically corrected arena is so hard to feel. This will also help us feel that the Sikh fundamental rights are freely exercised. They can freely exercise their personal religious belief when they join the armed forces, because for any Sikh who's joining armed forces, it's an extension of his own faith, which is being a Sikh. Not taking too much time, I would go on towards the legal section towards it. In 1993, Congress enacted the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is known as RFRA, which gave religious freedom, but it gave a very broad protection of religious liberty. What RFRA provides that in order to get religious protection, the government shall not substantially burden anyone's exercise of religion unless it is demonstrated that the application of the burden to a person, number one, is in furtherance of compelling government interest. Number two, it is a least restrictive means. That means that the government has the burden of showing that the policy furthers the compelling government interest by the least restrictive means. Now, as our first panelist, the distinguished speaker, said, we lawyers are kind of used to making simple things make more complicated. Now, this interpretation could be used in a very vast sense. In Iqnoor's case, the challenge was he wanted to join ROTC. He spent 2 years of his life fighting to even get into ROTC, to fight to be equal for a contract which makes him a commanding officer. Now, why is it important? Because when he joined ROTC, when he applied for his application at ROTC, they said they rejected his first application, stating that he cannot be seeking accommodation because he's not in the army, and this rule only applies when you're in the army. So therefore, he needs to join the army in order to apply for accommodation. But for a baptized Sikh who shaves off his beard, removes his turban, and has already compromised his religious belief, how can he join ROTC and ask for accommodation, which he stands for the first place? So that was the challenge in this case. It's a catch-22 regulation. So the federal court, in this case, they interpreted the statute and they ruled that the army officials violated Sikh college students' rights, and under the religious freedom, under RFRA with the same act, under which they refused to accommodate his rights to personal religion in terms of enrollment. They said that he should not cut his hair or shave his beard or remove his turban as what is required by his religious beliefs. And what they did was wrong, and the judge, I can use it right on his name, Judge Amy Bierman Jackson stated that the right to religious express must be protected so long it does not harm the third party. Now, this particular case clearly demonstrates that while the armed forces have a compelling interest in maintaining cohesion, uniformity, discipline, readiness, health, safety, a balance of interest which is against protecting a citizen's right to religious exercise falls more favorably on the side of protecting Sikh religious freedom. Therefore, in simple words, the judge agreed that right to anyone's religious rights is much greater than any other explanations or reasons which Army stated in their initial application. Now, going further, the judge further said that this is especially true because if the exercise of these freedoms would not interfere in least the most government interest. The court also noted that in Army, there are people who serve in the Army, specifically the people who are in Afghanistan. You don't have time to shave all the time, people. So it's easiest to be the way you are, and there is a reason, there is a medical, you can keep beard and still serve in the Army. And you don't have to be a Sikh to do that as far as you are exempted based on your medical terms. Now, looking at this particular law itself, it's again contradictory. So on one side, we are asking for a special accommodation for a Sikh to follow his religious beliefs. On the flip side, a person, based on his medical treatment, based on his medical recommendation, is allowed to still keep his beard, which is not religiously important to him in Army, and that is not case-to-case based accommodation. That is a part of a rule as far as they can apply and they can get the accommodation. We have already mentioned the long history of the long and very glorious Sikh history of Sikhs in the Army. There are more than thousands of Sikhs who have got accommodation, who actually laid down their life both in World War I, World War II. In fact, last year UK celebrated 100 years of Sikhs in UK Army. There are also conversations happening to have a special Sikh regiment in UK. There is a special Sikh regiment in India too. In fact, our neighbor, Canada, last year appointed a Sikh with full turban, full beard as their defense minister who served in the Canadian Army. His name is Mr. Harjeet Singh Sajjan. The Indian Air Force commander, the Field Marshal of Indian Air Force, Mr. Arjun Singh, he's also a full turban Sikh. The former General of India is also full turban, full beard Sikh, General Bikramjit Singh. All of them courageously served their respected countries with full turban, full beard, while keeping their articles of faith intact. Well, notwithstanding the Sikhs' long history of military service since 2009, there are few Sikhs who have got accommodation in US, and they are based on case-to-case basis. The process to get such accommodation is that the army officials can make an accommodation, whereas in terms of the grooming and appearances practices are concerned, once they make an application to the Secretary of the Army. And once the Secretary of the Army, and the first person they go on to is the Deputy Chief of Staff, and after that it is the Secretary of the Army. The request for the accommodation of religious practices are, again, assessed on case-to-case basis. They are considered based on unique facts, the nature of request, religious accommodation, the effect of approval or denial of service of exercise of religion, the effect of approval or denial of mission accomplishment, including the unit coercion. Now, Sikhs like Ignore Singh, 19-year-old young New Yorker, and our client was at disadvantage because this process is long and time-consuming, and this process must be followed in order to have an exemption. Now, this is a challenge because not everybody would spend 2 years of their life to even be considered as his peers to fight for a position. Therefore, we request everybody who's in the room to again go back and be with us so that Sikhs can equally and without any reservation are allowed to serve in the country, because the only way, the right to observe one's religion is a basic and fundamental American right that should not be a barrier to serve one's country. We cannot allow the right to be needlessly tampered by antiquated and wrongful stereotypes that do not serve the society's notion of fairness and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaspreet. See Gabriel on my shoulder, right, to right. If you give us some questions, Gabriel. If there are any
sure. I just want to make sure that we're respectful. I believe the Major General
I've got about five minutes.
Great. Well, if there are any questions, if there are any lingering questions from anybody who would be happy to. It's very helpful to have the experiences and the stories from people who have served in the Indian Air Force, in our own military, who have experience. You know, sometimes in the United States, we assume that we are the first people to be handling certain issues. We assume that the first time that potentially if a Sikh wants to serve in the military, that it must have never been done before. We must be the first ones who are dealing with the gas mask issue, dealing with helmets, dealing with good order and discipline. These issues have been dealt with before. Sikhs have served openly and been accommodated in the United States military before, and it is the position of many in the Sikh community that they should be again. So this is a conversation that the Sikh Caucus is going to continue to have. There are a variety of organizations who are working on this issue, and so we want to thank all of you for coming today and look forward to continuing that conversation through the rest of this Congress. So thanks.
One last thing. We do have a reception tonight.
Yes, of course. We have a reception tonight, so if you are hungry, please come by 2167 from 5:30 until 7:30 tonight. It is not a regular Cap Host catered event. We have an outside restaurant coming in. It will be delicious. Bring your interns. It will be fabulous. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to our panel.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਵਾਲਾ ਦਿਨ ਹੈ। DC ਵਿੱਚ ਰੋਮਨ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ 'ਚ ਰੂਮ ਨੰਬਰ 2253 ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ 5 ਕਕਾਰ ਲਈ। ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ। ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਬਾਕੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਬੁਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗੇ ਜੋ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 30 ਸਾਲ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਮਤਲਬ ਜੌਬ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਆਰਮੀ 'ਚ। ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਬੋਪਾ ਰਾਜ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਐਂਡ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਇੱਥੇ US ਆਰਮੀ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜੌਬ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਆਏ ਸਨ। ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਬਾਲ ਰੱਖਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ, ਦਾੜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਰੱਖੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਪੱਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੂਰੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਰਮੀ 'ਚ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ। ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਟਾਰਟਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਮ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਹੋਰ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕਰਦੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇਨ US ਵਿੱਚ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਫਤਿਹ
ਜੀ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੀ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਨਕਲੂਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ?
ਦੇਖੋ, ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਟਾਫਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਾਊਸ ਔਰ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਦੀ ਆਰਮਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ 'ਚ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਟਾਫਰ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਅਲਟੀਮੇਟਲੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਪਾਬੰਦੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਰੀਗਨ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਮਾਨੇ 'ਚ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਡਿਕਰੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗੀ ਸੀ। ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੀ ਸੁਧਾਈ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦਾ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਇਹੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕਿ US ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਫਿਰ US ਸੈਨੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈਜਿਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਏ, ਉਹ ਪਾਸ ਕਰਨ ਕੇ ਰਾਈਟ ਮਿਲੇ ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਤੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਕਰੀਏ ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀਟੋ ਨਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਡਿਕਰੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਨਡੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ US ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਕਸ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 50 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਲਗਭਗ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਨੇ, ਬਾਈ ਪਾਰਟੀਸਨ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੈ, ਗੈਰਮੰਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਆਰਮਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਹਾਊਸ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਵੀ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਨੀਸ਼ੀਏਟ ਕੀਤੀ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਜੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਏਗੀ, 1-to-1 ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਲੈਜਿਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਏ, ਜਿਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਹੈ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੌਜ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੇਜ ਤੇ ਲਾਗੂ ਰਹੀ। ਫਸਟ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਭਗਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਥਿੰਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਾਈਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਔਰ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਐਕਸੈਪਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ 4-5 ਸਿੱਖ ਆਫੀਸਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ 'ਚੋਂ 2-3 ਕਾਫੀ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਲਾਉ ਕੀਤਾ। ਬਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਸੰਤ ਸਿਪਾਹੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਨਸੈਪਟ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਔਰ ਸ਼ਸਤਰ ਗਰੀਬ ਕੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਰਵਾਣੇ ਕੀ ਪੱਖਿਆ, ਇਹ ਬੇਸਿਕ 6ਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੁਲਕ ਬਣਾਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਫੈਂਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ, ਦੀਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ ਔਰ ਵਰਲਡ ਸਟੇਜ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ 30 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਪਣੀ ਇੱਕ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹਸਤੀ ਬਣਾ ਸਕੇ, ਉਹਦੀ ਪਛਾਣ ਹੋਏ। ਔਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇਹਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਜਰੀ ਉਦਾਹਰਣ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੱਜਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਆਰਮੀ 'ਚ, ਅੱਜ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟਰੀ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਰਾਹੀਂ MP ਬਣੇ ਔਰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਬਣੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਕੁੱਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪੈਨਲ 'ਚ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਬੜੇ ਡਿਸਟਿੰਗੁਇਸ਼ਡ ਪੈਨਲਿਸਟ ਸਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਰਿੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੋਪਾਰ ਆਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ 60-70s ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਲਈ, ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੱਕ ਉਹ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਔਰ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਰਾਥਨ ਦੌੜਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਦਰ ਨਿਊਕਲੀਅਰ ਔਰ ਕੈਮੀਕਲ ਵਾਰਫੇਅਰ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਲਿਆ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਔਰ ਕਾਫੀ ਡਿਸਟਿੰਗੁਇਸ਼ਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ DC ਮਿਲਟਰੀ ਅਟੈਚੀ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਜਾਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਨਾਲ 1849 ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਈਵਨ 1805 ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। ਔਰ ਜਸਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੀਗਲ ਦਾਇਰਾਕਾਰ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲਸ ਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਨੂਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਕਿ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਕੋਰਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਨੂਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਕੇਸ 'ਚ ਫੇਵਰੇਬਲ ਡਿਸੀਜਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਸੋ ਕੁੱਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਵੀ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਏ ਸਟਾਫ ਔਰ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਦੇ, ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਆਧਾਰਿਤ ਫਰਦਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਪੂਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਫਾਈਲ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੇਸ ਦੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਈ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਪੈਨਲਿਸਟ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣਨਗੇ ਫਰਦਰ ਇਸ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲੌਬਿੰਗ।
ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ।
ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ।
ਵਿਊਅਰਸ, ਇਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਲੜੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ 5 ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੱਗ ਅਤੇ ਦਾੜੀ ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਮਿਲ ਸਕੇ, ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਇਹ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੇ ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਦਮ ਸਦਕਾ ਇਹ ਬਰੀਫਿੰਗ ਸੰਭਵ ਹੋ ਸਕੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਯਤਨ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਦੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਅਜਿਹਾ ਆਵੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਦਾੜੀ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਐਵੇਂ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ। ਅਮਰਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ, ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ DC। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।